Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Afternoon in Dublin, Ireland. It is a noon Eastern kickoff, 9 a.m. Pacific. Georgia Tech facing the number 10 ranked Florida State Seminoles. First appearance for Florida State this season, of course, a year after winning the ACC title. So this is a big one. Florida State, by the way, is the favorite in the ACC according to the betting odds. And listen, you don't need me to tell you. I think more than anything, I'm just curious to see what Florida State looks like after the way last season ended. Now, I know Florida State fans are watching this, listening to this. You don't need me to relitigate everything that happened in early December and mid to late December of 2023. Obviously a wild finish though, right? You finish 13-0, you win the ACC championship, you get left out of the 4-team college football playoff, and then you go to the Orange Bowl and get smoked. But in your defense, most of your best players opted out. You were told that you weren't good enough to compete for a championship. So some of your players said, well, if we ain't playing for a championship, I'm out. I don't blame the players. But I think first and foremost, I'm just excited to see, is this one of those we've spent 9 months stewing with how things ended last year? More importantly, I think it's also worth noting, like, chip on your shoulder, ready to go week 0. But what's also interesting is there's a lot of new pieces. It's a completely new team. And bluntly, I think even the style of play for Florida State is going to look different. The big piece of news, obviously dating back to the offseason, the big piece of news, if you are tuning into Florida State for the first time, they got themselves a new quarterback since the last time we saw him, as Jordan Travis has graduated. The backup has transferred. Tate Rodemaker, he actually was named a starter somewhere. I'm blanking on where. But the big offseason transaction, if you will, for Florida State, they bring in DJ Uiagalelei, of course, formerly of Clemson, formerly of Oregon State. Well, he has that 5th year of COVID eligibility. He ends up at Florida State. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that it's not just going to be about what happens on Saturday in Dublin. But in my opinion, I think largely it's going to be a story of the season for Florida State. How far Florida State goes, in my opinion, largely will rest on the shoulders and the right arm of DJ Uiagalelei. Listen, I'm not gonna do like the trash the kid thing, because I think he's been a good, solid college quarterback, and I think you can look at it as a positive and a negative. The guy is quite literally good enough to lead you to an ACC title, because if you remember a few years ago when he was the starter at Clemson, he of course led Clemson to an ACC title. Now, in the ACC title game, Cade Klubnik played quite a bit, but I just bring it up because he's good enough if all of the other pieces around him are good. What I also think is true as well is that we kind of have a 4-year sample size of who this guy is. Last year, 57% completion percentage guy. I mean, this is not a guy that's Bo Nix, Michael Penix, 71, 72, 73% completion percentage. And I do wonder if, frankly, if there's anything left to learn about this guy, or if this is just who he is. Beyond that, what I would also say, what I'm also very interested about from the Florida State perspective, not only on Saturday, but this entire season, is basically, how does Florida State as a team play? It was interesting. I was talking to somebody pretty close to the program over the last probably 2 or so weeks as they got set for this game. And they pointed out, like, hey, remember, 2 years ago, Florida State led the ACC in rushing. They were largely a ground and pound team, and they didn't throw the ball as much that year that they won 10 games in 2022. Then last year, you have Keon Coleman, you have Jordan Travis's improves year over year, and now you're throwing the ball more, you're running the ball a little bit less. And I was really told, like, Florida State, they're going to focus on the run game, focus on really reestablishing kind of that line of scrimmage, and that we're a run-first team. Defensively for Florida State, I think this will also be interesting. A lot of talent lost off last year's team. We don't need to go player by player, position by position, but it's worth noting Jared Verse, first-round pick, Los Angeles Rams, is gone. Brendan Fisk, second-round pick of the Los Angeles Rams, gone. Guys in that linebacker group, the secondary group. The point I'm trying to make, That defense is almost completely new and going up against a very interesting Georgia Tech team. Okay, so Georgia Tech 7-6 a year ago. Listen, I think on the national scale, I'm not sure that they really like move the needle in a crazy way. I think most people obviously remember that game against Miami. Miami had it won. All they had to do was take a knee. They didn't. They fumbled. Georgia Tech wins. But what's interesting about Georgia Tech, how about the revival of their quarterback? You may remember the name. Remember the name Haynes King? So Haynes King was that multi-year starter at Texas A&M. He was actually the starter when they lost to App State. And I'll be honest, you could go through the archives of this show. I probably said some not very nice things about Haynes King during his time at A&M. But I do think that last year proved that maybe it wasn't all on Haynes King, and a lot of it was maybe on Jimbo Fisher. Haynes King goes to Georgia Tech, 26 touchdown passes. He does still have 16 interceptions a season ago. And so when I look at this game, a couple other things on Georgia Tech. One, where the concern is with them, defense just was not good last year, okay? Gave up too many yards, too many points. I'll tell you a wild stat that I kind of came across. They lost 6 games last year. This is kind of crazy. And in 5 of those 6 games, they gave up 38 or more points in their losses. And so you talk about some of their losses last year, whether it was to a good team like a Clemson where they gave up 42, a good team like Ole Miss, they gave up 48. But the counter is they gave up 38 to Bowling Green in a loss. They gave up, like I said, 42 to Clemson. Here's the kind of crazy part. The only loss, by the way, that they didn't give up more than 38 points, a loss to Georgia, the number 1 team in the country, final week of the season. So the defense was not good. And that obviously has to improve. Now, in terms of this game, I'll tell you this. So I'll be blunt. Starting next week, we will start making our picks for the weekend ahead, probably on the Tuesday show. Tuesday night, we'll start previewing the big games, okay? And I think most of the week 1 games, I have strong opinions on USC, LSU, on Georgia, Clemson, on Florida, Miami. This is a game that I don't have a strong opinion on. And one thing about me, listen, we're going to be blessed to be working with a gambling company here in a couple weeks. I bring it up because one thing about me is if I wouldn't go to a window in Vegas, if I wouldn't download the app on my phone and bet the game myself, I'm not going to tell you. And so to me, listen, I know everybody wants the big, bold take for week 0. Total stay away to me. Florida State's like a 10.5 point favorite. But when I look at this game, I see a 57% completion percentage quarterback with DJU. I see Haynes King, who had, as I said, 16 interceptions last year. Worth noting, by the way, I think he had 3 different games where he threw, I think 4 actually, when he threw at least 2 interceptions. And so you're getting good Haynes King or bad Haynes King. Getting 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown Haynes King, or you getting the one where he throws 2 interceptions and struggles. So this is a stay away to me. I think Florida State's, I believe, is going to win this game. I could see it being like a 20, maybe a 31-23 type game in which Florida State's in control, but Georgia Tech covers. I told you, I'm not betting this game. If you want to, if you feel great about how this is going to go down, that's fine. But you got 2 teams traveling halfway across the world. New starting quarterback for Florida State. Worth noting, by the way, most of that defense is new as well. And they're not the type of program that has necessarily recruited at such a high level that they can just replace everybody that leaves the program. So I just bring it up to say this one's a stay away to me. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to wake up and have my tea and crumpets. I guess that's more London and England than Ireland. I guess I'll just have my Irish coffee. I don't think I'll be cracking a Guinness at 9 a.m. Pacific, but it's going to be a fun one. I am so excited for college football to be back. And again, I want to reemphasize, Tuesday night, we will do our full week 1 preview where we talk Miami, Florida, A&M, Notre Dame. I got takes on all of them, but we'll wait until then to preview those games.